Civil Media.
I usually start with jokes at the beginning, so I want to know that it's kind of colder now. I don't know if it's probably because of the name Northern Macedonia and so on and so forth. Hopefully not. I would somehow, it is probably my objective to end the pessimism of the previous speakers and start speaking more optimistically. And I always think of myself as a more optimistic person. And going closer to the 50 years of my life, I'm kind of an informed optimist, and for some it is a definition for a pessimist, and hopefully I have not translated to that side yet. Through the years of working in the center and this entire social life in Macedonia, if nothing else, I have learned to be more realistic and not to expect much, so that my expectations would be more harmonized with the actual situation and the assessment of movements. So as when this government was established 2 years ago, some of the ambassadors have asked about the expectations, and at that time my main expectation was not to expect much, or not to expect that much would change. Not that they are not better, but because of the people and the human capacity that we have here, so it's probably not be very much different, with exceptions, of course. I did not mention any names, but at that time I did not know about the minister Biljana Jordanovska, who is one of my more positive surprises. Unfortunately, as one can see during these days, kind of my expectations are coming to reality, that things are moving more or less the same. So in that respect, we should not expect too much. I will say an anecdote which I often mention, and which pertains to the discussion in the negotiation in Israel and Palestine in '85, when the lead negotiators, Shimon Peres and Said Begati, these were the lead negotiators, although there were other lead figures. They were talking before the signing, and one says to the other, "Do you know why we hate you so much, the Israelis and the Palestinians?" I don't know who said what, and the other one said, "Why? You remind us too much of us." And probably this is something which is also reflected here, regardless whether it is on ethnic basis, Macedonian, Albanians, or party basis, VMRO, SDS, and so on and so forth. So we should slowly start overcoming that and starting to understand how similar we are. I reminded myself that I have already said this on some of the interviews for Civil, and we should also not expect that someone from outside will change this for us, because the change should start and end with us, and we are the ones that should do this change. And I believe that very soon we will face it. The day yesterday was one of the indicators for that. For the referendum, everyone came to the country and said that the agreement was good. Yesterday, for the NATO flag, I was not able to see any important figures being present from NATO and from other NATO alliance members, which would show us that they are here with us. I'm very pleased to have here present with us the German ambassador, which also shows what I have also previously mentioned, that we are the ones who should do much, even everything, and not to expect for someone else to resolve our problems. And they will of course support us, push us towards that objective, but we are the ones who should do the change. And to conclude with the Prespa agreement, for which it is no secret that I was one of the opponents and a critic, although I believe it is good that it was reached. This is something that I have been talking about and written about, but now I believe that it's good that we have it, and I have congratulated the people who have moved this process forward and completed it, because if nothing less, we have crossed the psychological barrier, and I think that again we will face with what I have been talking about, because it is now up to us to do all the reforms required and changes and movements on the path towards the EU. I know that it is good that we will be NATO member, but the question is about the EU, because the EU will not accept us until we make the reforms. In economic terms, it is better when you are in NATO and outside of EU, because we will have a lot of investments shown from the experience. Now we have the agreement, and we should use it, at least in economic terms, to move things forward, to provide as much investments as possible, thereby preventing the brain drain from Macedonia, although it's a very difficult process to stop, which also results into changes of the value chain. This is something that we have been talking for years, and we have failed in making it reality, because if we do that and if we succeed, we will have a more real perspectives. And as Jevdet and Najčevska have said, as we see the actual situation, it will be difficult for us to speak of any bright future or perspectives, regardless of our moving pace towards the EU. Thank you.
Civil Media